And we're here in the lovely South Padre Island, right here in the heart of the valley. And I have the honor of interviewing Congressman Joe Crowley. Good morning, Congressman. How are you?
Thank you, Joe. Great to be with you. Thanks.
Well, Congressman, tell us a little bit about your district and who you represent.
Well, I represent the 14th Congressional District, which is up in Queens, parts of Queens and parts of the Bronx. If any of your viewers have been to LaGuardia Airport, they've been to my district, they've been to Flushing Meadows Corona Park, where the U.S. Open is played, or if they've seen a Met game at Citi Field, they're in my district.
Well, tell us a little bit about your background and why you wanted to serve as a congressman.
Well, I've been serving in the House of Representatives for I'm in my 15th year, my 8th term. Prior to that, I served for 12 years in the state legislature. I came from a fairly political family, and I love the politics and love, I think, the issues that I get to deal with every day. Sometimes they're more difficult. The issue of Syria, for instance, presents some real challenges for us as a country and as a legislative body. But at the same time, you have an opportunity to help people every day, and whether it's in my district office and helping people with immigration or their tax issues or Social Security, Medicare, it's a really great feeling to be able to help people.
Well, you have a very diverse district, and one of the most diverse in America, I should say, a really melting pot. What sort of issues, aside from immigration, are you facing, and the cuts and the devastation of those cuts that may put your, supporters and your district in jeopardy?
Well, I think like every district in the country where we have working folk, my district is just like that. Working middle class, working poor, are struggling to make ends meet. I think if especially in a city like New York, it's not an easy place for the middle class to live and survive. It's a high cost area. So the people are struggling just like everywhere else in the world, in the country, trying to make ends meet, get their kids a good education, get their feet on the ground, and have the support they need to maintain a good family life. And I think that's a real priority for my constituency. It's many of the people live in my district work in Manhattan and support the big industries like financial services or just a myriad of different industries in the city. And we're the backbone of the workforce of the city of New York.
You know, I think a lot of people down here in South Texas think, well, we have our own specific problems, needs, but at the end of the day, I think all of us can have a commonality of issues that we're addressing. Let's talk health care and the change in the Affordable Care Act. What do you anticipate happening at the beginning of 2014?
Well, you just hit on a great point in terms of the similarity between South Texas and Queens, New York. Many of the issues you're dealing with here in terms of the Affordable Care Act and its introduction are the same. I visited yesterday with Renaissance Hospital, and they're dealing with many of the same issues that the city hospitals up in New York are dealing with as well. But I do think this is an opportunity for people who heretofore have not been able to afford health insurance. For the first time in their lives, they're going to be able to do that under this legislation. We're seeing in New York, for instance, the premiums for plans coming down as much as more than 50%. With the creation of the exchange that is going to be created this October and go into effect in January. So we're excited in New York about that. I know it's different from state to state, and Texas is kind of struggling its way through the creation of those exchanges. I think the federal government's going to do it instead of the state itself.
Well, Ed, what we're looking at is when that exchange, when boots on the ground, trying to get everybody signed up, what do you anticipate being the biggest barrier or access for people to sign up for it?
I think, especially in states where they're not as cooperative with the federal government in implementing the law, that it's going to be getting the information out, letting people know what's available and what's not. And I think that in all likelihood will be one of the biggest problems we face. I think that the bill itself and the law itself has had difficulties in terms of disseminating what exactly is in the bill. What are the requirements? I know many small businessmen and women have issues with that, and when they find out they're exempt if they have less than 50 employees from any mandates or requiring insurance, or if they have less than 25 employees that they may be able to avail themselves of tax credits, I think things start to turn around. They start to appreciate it more, but they don't really know enough about it. Accountants don't know enough, I don't think, about what the benefits of the law are as well.
Well, and let's talk about education. Another big area, down here, our dropout rates are deplorable. We've got a big Latino population, over 30-40% dropout rate from Corpus Christi down to over here. Do you encounter the same kind of thing, and what are you trying to do initiatives to help funding for education?
It's interesting. I guess misery loves company. It's an adage, but it applies here. Some of the public schools in New York City are not performing at the level that they ought to be, and our dropout rate or our non-graduation rate is very comparable to what's happened here in South Texas as well. I think that obviously education overall is a state's issue. The federal government has been involved in terms of mandates through the Leave No Child Behind Act. I do think that we're having second looks at that, or the overemphasis on testing as opposed to really what's working. And I, visiting here in South Texas, had the opportunity to visit one school district, Progressa, I believe
Yes, right there, right by the border.
They're doing some interesting things here in terms of really encouraging students to stay in school, to get not only a high school diploma, but even an associate's degree that will enable them to get a job, which is really important. I think I'm learning about the cultural differences in terms of South Texas and other parts of Texas but even parts of the country. And that's interesting. And I think they're doing some innovative things that maybe we can take back to New York as well and apply.
Well, let's talk quickly about immigration. One of the big issues here is, there's a lot of people, a faction that'll say we need more border security, we need more fencing, we need more manpower. What's your view on immigration?
I have a very, very strong position of the need for comprehensive immigration reform. I am myself the son of an immigrant. My mother was born in Ireland. All four of my grandparents came from there. I always said if they had their druthers, they would have stayed. But for economic and political reasons, they were forced to leave. So when I talk about immigrants, I say they're the best, the brightest, and the bravest. It takes an awful lot of gumption, even today, to uproot your family and take them to this great land of opportunity. And this is not an invitation for everyone come, but I do think we have to deal with the human element of the 11 plus million individuals who are here and struggling and trying to make a better way of life for themselves and their families, and who are contributing to the fabric of America. We have to take them out of the shadows and stop treating them as second-class Americans. We also have to deal with the issue of the border. I do believe in a secure border. I believe that the integrity of the border is important for our country. We're not the United States of America, Canada, and Mexico. We're the United States of America. And that's important, I think, the integrity of our border. But I think we get overly wrapped up in the notion of fences and walls and troops almost, or more manpower. And we're not really addressing the other issues, especially in these countries where these people are coming from, the economic issues, the political issues as well. I think we need to be more engaged in those issues so that people can live in the countries where they're born and not feel that there's no hope for them in those lands.
And I had somebody from Mexico, a political leader there who wants to remain anonymous, but he told me those in Spanish. He said, las cosas más absurdas son las dos cosas que dicen que podemos hacer ilegal, hacemos las leyes ilegal para drogas y para laboreros. He said the two most absurd things are that we in America are saying, let's outlaw laborers coming from Mexico and let's outlaw drugs. And, the federal judges may think that nobody wants them here, but to the contrary, everybody wants cheap labor and cheap drugs. What's some of the strategies you're working on to help our friends down south work together to try to stop the stream of drugs and try to make some comprehensive reform for people that are crossing the border fences to come work?
Well, I do think it's a supply and demand issue, right? So whether it's the drug markets or illicit drug markets or the issue of labor, human labor, I don't think we ought to be encouraging I won't say slave labor, but labor, substandard labor in the United States. And I think that people, regardless of where they come from, require a level of dignity as a human being that we have to. I think we've been failing to address. And so my hope is that any part of any comprehensive solution that we do deal with the agricultural workers, whether they be from Mexico or even further south, we need their work, we need their help and assistance, and we need to create a formula that works for them and works for us at the same time. I think many of them don't want to be permanently in America, and they go back and forth. I think we have to have a system that allows for that in a smart way that helps the United States, but also helps those individuals and maintain their families back there. In terms of drugs, I think the United States is having a debate right now, whether in state legislatures about legalization of marijuana, whether for medical purposes as well as for leisure. And it's an issue that I think we'll struggle with for a bit more. I do think that it is draining the resources of our country in enormous ways. And maybe we have to look at it in a different way. It's all been about law enforcement and about putting people in jail. And I think that some of these folks are, whether they're dealing drugs or doing something else, will probably find themselves back in jail at some point anyway. They're just bad actors. But for many users or people who are addicted, who find themselves in jail today because of that addiction, I think we have to find it's draining our systems, and it's not helping these individuals as well. So I think states are starting to take different looks at. We saw it happen in Colorado. We've seen what's happened in other states as well. So I do think that maybe on a new approach to illicit drug trading as well.
Well, we're going to take a brief break, and when we come back with United States Congressman Joe Crowley from New York, we're going to be talking more about some very common issues that are affecting not only South Texas, but also New York as well. There's a lot of commonality there, and we're also going to try to catch another Congresswoman, Cinnamon, when we come back. We're going to interview her and try to get her right before she catches a plane.
Have you been arrested or are potentially facing criminal charges? You need a trial attorney who is well-versed in the courtroom. Joe Flores has handled hundreds of criminal cases and many of them to trial. Joe Flores can provide you with competent representation to protect your constitutional rights in state and federal court. Joe Flores can help if you have been arrested or facing criminal charges. The law offices of Joe Flores. Equal justice for all. Have you or a loved one suffered a stroke, heart attack, unexplained low blood pressure, or death during dialysis? The FDA has issued warnings and recalled the product Granuflo and Naturalite used in dialysis. At least one national company failed to warn the public that over 900 people had suffered cardiac arrest or death. A condition called metabolic alkalosis developed, which may have caused the harm. Call the law offices of Joe Flores today. With a combined 25 years of experience in the medical field and as a trial lawyer, Joe Flores can help. Call now.
And we're back after a brief break. You're joining Joe Flores with South Texas Crossfire, KTMV, the Lopez Broadcasting family. I have the distinct pleasure of bringing on a great friend of all the community of South Texas, and that's none other than Congressman Henry Cuellar. How are you, Congressman?
It is a pleasure being with you.
Thank you. Now, we just got through with a border summit that you and Filemon Vela spearheaded. It was great. It was productive. Tell us a little bit about the summit and your position on immigration.
Well, first of all, I got to say, Mr. Vela has just been doing a great job. Phil, he's started. He's been hitting the ground running, so I got to say thank you for all the great work. Number two, immigration reform. I support immigration reform, full comprehensive immigration reform, smart, strong border security, a guest worker plan that works well. And of course, what do we do about the 11 to 12 million undocumented persons that we have here? We got to address that issue with them. And the other thing is, we got to just keep one thing in mind is that a lot of us understand immigration reform on a very personal basis. My father, my mother went on to a 3rd, 6th grade education. They went to go work in Las Piscas. My father became a naturalized citizen, and now he's a U.S. citizen. So to me, the son of those immigrants have now become a U.S. congressman. That's the American dream that we all want to look at.
Well, and I appreciate your thoughts on that. I think you also said something very poignant that I think that our viewers can relate to is about the wall, building more walls, building more muros, as you had said. Can you tell us a little bit about what you said to the audience that was over there at the summit about that?
Well, first of all, a wall is a 14th century solution to a 21st century problem that we have. Let's look at what happened to the Berlin Wall, the Great Wall of China, the French in the World War I against the Germans. walls just don't do what a lot of people think that they think they're going to do. And you got to look at also is the mentality that a lot of folks up there in Washington think that the way you look at border security is by adding walls and by adding more men and women in green, which is Border Patrol. It's a little bit more complicated than that, and they just don't understand the dynamics, the crossing of legitimate trade between the U.S. and Mexico, $1.2 billion every day. There are 6 million jobs that we have over here, and we just got to understand that the Rio Grande or the Rio Bravo doesn't divide us as a country, but actually unites us as a country.
Well, and the other issue that you brought up was the safety of those immigrants that were coming over. This is a human issue. If you build a wall, what happens to the people that are trying to come over? Because they're going to come over anyway. They're searching for, the employers are looking for cheap labor and what have you. When they're coming over, are there more deaths? Are you seeing a rise in that?
Well, yes, and we have seen this. People have died, and all they're trying to do is to find a job over here. And that's why if we have a good guest worker plan that works, people can come in, meet the supplies that Americans don't want to do. First, let's give those jobs to Americans, but if they don't want to go work in the hot sun and facing very difficult situations like my father, my mother did, then allow the guest worker plan where the free market society marketplace allows them to come provide those jobs, and then they can go back, and that way they're not going to cross the desert and die in the middle of a desert or South Texas.
Well, Congressman, I know that you represent a very diverse district, and tell the audience a little bit about who you represent and what issues are passionate aside from immigration.
Right. My hometown is Laredo, and I come all the way down to Hidalgo County, the Mission area. Then I go all the way up to San Antonio, and in between I have a lot of rural areas. And in many ways we have the same interests, making sure that we have a good educational system, that somebody has a job, that we have a safe place to go to church, go to school, go to work. But at the same time, keep in mind there's the rural areas that agriculture is very important. And as you know, down here in the valley, the agriculture is very important. I support agriculture, and that's why the Farm Bill is important. And a lot of people say, well, what does the Farm Bill have to do with us that live in the urban areas? Well, the food just doesn't appear in the big cities like in New York or Chicago. They come from the fields and then they go to our tables also.
Well, and the other issue that you all brought up clearly was that militarization of the border is not going to work. But you said something that struck, I think that will really relate to our viewers. You said we need to use 21st century technology. What kind of technology are you thinking would enhance border security while, we look at the issue of guest worker status?
Well, first of all, if you talk about border security, 1 mile of technology, sensors, cameras, those type of technology will cost about $1 million per mile. But if you put 1 mile of a fence, it will cost, with maintenance and construction, all that, a little bit over $7 million. So for the taxpayer, it just makes more sense to look at technology. And plus, the sensors of the cameras can do more than a stationary fence. I used to joke around that who do you think is going to build this fence? Remember what happened in California when those private contractors were building the fence? They were using undocumented aliens, so they wanted to make sure they were on this side of the fence, and it was really something. So again, we just gotta talk about sensible border security. But at the same time, when we talk about the immigration system, let's look at the legal system that we have right now, like my father did. The naturalization, the legal resident naturalization. Eventually, right now the system is all clogged up. People that want to do that take a long time. Why not add more resources in that area so the people that want to follow the process the legal way, allow them to do it instead of the system that's not working right now?
Well, right now we have people that have, say, family that are in this country legally, and they're waiting for their brother, sister, husband, and they're taking up to 20 years or more. I think Congressman Gallego said it best. He said, let me make you a promise that in 100 years you can become a citizen. What's your take on trying to facilitate? What are the real remedies of trying to make that a better system?
And absolutely right. We got to look at the system that we have right now. How do we expedite it? How do we make it better for those people that are here? And then, of course, the 11, 12 that are here, million, some of my friends have said, well, we're not going to do an amnesty. Well, if they don't want to do that, just the fact by not doing anything at all, I told my conservative friends, that is a de facto amnesty. Think about that. They're going to stay here. So why not bring them out of the shadow? It is a natural, to them I say it is to our best interest to know who is in the shadows. I want to know who they are. Take them out of the shadows, provide some sort of legalization where they can work, they can travel, and think about all this money that they'll bring into our economy. And more importantly, if you look at the top 500 companies, 40% of them were started by immigrant or their kids. Whether it's McDonald's, AT&T, Google, those were immigrants. And if you look at this, those companies, if we are able to bring more of those companies, more of those individuals out, we could have more of those innovative companies in the United States if we just bring that power that we have, that innovation that are right now in the shadows.
Well, this is a bit of pleasure introducing you to our community in South Texas again. Congressman Henry Cuellar, all the way from Laredo down to Hidalgo, all the way to San Antonio. Any last words for your constituents?
The only thing is, I'm an optimist. We all got to try very, very hard in making sure we get immigration reform. But at the same time, let's not forget about what happens in our community. The Hispanic community is growing very fast. In the last 10 years in the state of Texas, we grew by 4.3 million individuals. 65% were Hispanics. Right now, one of the greatest challenges we're facing in the state of Texas is to make sure our kids don't drop out of high school, that they go off to college and graduate from college and go beyond that. Because if we are going to have the potential of a Hispanic community, we got to make sure that everybody, all Hispanic, non-Hispanics, all of us get a good education.
Well, thank you, Dr. Cuellar, and you've been listening to United States Congressman Henry Cuellar.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to be back after this break. Hi, this is attorney and board-certified nurse practitioner Joe Flores on behalf of Vasquez Flores Home Health. Nursing homes have their place, but having care in your own home is very important. Call today for more information. Backed by over 20 years of experience, registered nurse Priscilla Vasquez can answer your questions about home care. Call 881-9922. That's 881-9922 today. And we're back after a brief break in South Texas Crossfire, and we were fortunate enough to catch up with Congresswoman from Arizona, Kyrsten Sinema. Welcome, Congresswoman. How are you?
Well, it's great to meet you, Joe. It's great to be with you.
Well, it's a great honor because I think we have a lot in common. We come from a very humble background, and I think you grew up where there wasn't a lot of running water, electricity, and you're a self-made woman. Many of your high school credits and college credits were done right there, and then you got a scholarship. Tell us a little bit about your experiences growing up.
Well, Joe, my story is not really all that unusual for many people in America. Like many families, my family hit tough times in the early 1980s when I was in elementary school. My dad lost his job, my parents got divorced, and before you knew it, we went from being a middle-class family living in a regular home to facing foreclosure. Our car even got repossessed. Although, Joe, who would take an orange El Camino is beyond me, but somebody repossessed that car. And then my family was homeless for several years. We lived in an abandoned gas station, no running water, no electricity. But what really was important for me during that time was the commitment that my parents had made to my education. So during those tough times, I never missed a day of school. And my parents always taught me that if you work hard and get a good education and do your best, you can make it. And I'm lucky. So you mentioned I was a self-made woman, but the truth is, Joe, many, many people helped me along the way. The government helped with food stamps when I was a kid and a Pell Grant when I went to college. Family and church helped as we were hungry and homeless. So I think that my story actually represents the best of the American dream. Hard work, plus helping each other during times of need.
Well, very well said. And, the thing is that I'm so excited to have you on here in this interview because a lot of people in South Texas say, well, she doesn't fit the stereotype of somebody, she's a lovely young woman, blonde, vibrant, they have a stereotype. So I think a lot of people down here, but another stereotype that I want to break is that there are a lot of our viewers that say, Arizona, I don't want to go there because I'm going to get carded because I have brown skin. Break some of those barriers down and educate people in South Texas about that.
Well, I really appreciate you asking about that, Joe. I was born and raised in Arizona, in Tucson, actually. So I'm a child of the southern area and the border myself. And the truth is that Arizona is an amazingly wonderful and diverse state. Now, unfortunately, we've had a couple folks in positions of power over the past few years who've given us a bad, kind of a bad look nationally. But beneath those folks who've kind of given a bad look to Arizona, the truth is that our state is made of people just like me and just like you. Hardworking folks who struggled to make it, who respect hard work of other people. And it's a community just like here in South Texas of folks who've lived here for generations, whether it was Mexico or whether it was the United States, and folks who chose to come here because of the high quality of life and the diversity that we enjoy. And I'd love to tell you that Arizona is changing, because it is. I mean, I was elected to Congress.
Right, and you know, bringing that into focus, the immigration policy. What's your take on immigration right now, and more border, more fences? We just had, you know, Congressman Crowley we were asking about from New York, but you're right there in the front lines, boots on the ground, and you're a border state just like we are. Talk to us about your view on immigration.
Well, I'm so grateful you asked that, Joe. Just 2 weeks ago, I went and spent some time down at the border with ranchers, with our border sheriffs, with produce growers, with folks engaged in commerce on the border region to find out what they believe. Because the bottom line is, the border is only real for the people who live and work on the border. For everyone else, it's something they see on TV or it's a story they hear about in the news. So I went right back down to my roots and spent some time down there. And you know what I heard from ranchers, conservative ranchers on the border? They don't want a fence, because a fence isn't useful. A fence actually divides them for their ranching neighbors in Mexico. It hurts their ability to have good agriculture and good produce growth. And what they said is, we need smart technology, good, talented boots on the ground, high quality staff, but also technology that can help us interdict those who are coming to do bad. And I know this is an issue in South Texas as well, that there's an increase in the criminal cartels that are bringing guns and drugs across the border. But we need to separate that criminal element from the good folks who are bringing commerce into our state, who are bringing produce into our state, and the hardworking people who want to have a shot at the American dream. They're coming to this country to work and work hard and take care of their families. And the great news about the prospect of immigration reform is it'll allow us to separate the bad elements from the good elements in terms of those who are coming into our country. You know, right now, Border Patrol can't really tell the difference between a good guy and a bad guy, right? They all kind of look the same. But with immigration reform, we'll have a legal path for folks to come to this country to work and live. And then the only folks who'll be doing bad things on the border are the bad guys. So we've got to get immigration reform done, but we need to be smart and thoughtful about it. You know, along with Representative Filemon Vela, I support the McCall bill, which is a bipartisan border security and commerce bill that creates a real path, not just for border security in the southern region of our country, but it also, and this is important, creates ports and the ability to get commerce and trade back and forth across the border. I know this is true for Texas, it's certainly true for Arizona. Our #1 trading partner in the world is Mexico. And if we fail at immigration reform, we're jeopardizing that commercial relationship that our states depend on for future economic success.
I know you've got a couple of minutes, but really quickly about the Affordable Care Act, can you kind of talk to us about that? I know you're a big advocate for families and for children and for seniors. Tell us a little bit about what your position is on the Affordable Care Act.
Well, Arizona, like Texas, is a state where our own governments have chosen not to establish a marketplace. That's unfortunate. I personally think the state can handle things much better than the federal government. Now, I say that because I come from state government, and I do think we're more efficient than the federal government. But because our state legislatures and our governors have chosen not to create a state-based exchange, we will have to rely on the federal government to create a marketplace. So what I've been doing is aggressively reaching out to the federal agencies that will operate these exchanges to make sure that we have information for businesses and for families. They need to know what the prices are going to be, what the availability is going to be, which plans will be offered, and they need help navigating the law to choose the plan that's right for them. Now, right now, the federal government, in my opinion, isn't doing quite enough to help families and businesses do this. And so that's why I've taken on that role in my community, and I know that Representative Vela is doing the same in South Texas. We're going to step up to the plate and help people navigate this law and make it work for them, even if federal agencies aren't able to do it.
And one last question on the Middle East. I know this is a long-term plan. Syria has been at the forefront recently. I know there's no easy solutions, but what is your take on our involvement in the Middle East?
Well, Joe, this question of Syria is absolutely a difficult one, and you're right, there are no good options. You know, I'm a thoughtful and deliberative person, and I feel honored and privileged to be a member of Congress and serve my constituents. And I think that that responsibility means that I have to take issues very seriously and be very deliberative before I make a decision. So, like many others in Congress, I'm in the information gathering phase. I'm learning all that I can. I'm talking with organized groups in my community and nationally and internationally to understand the situation, which is very complex. I think it's too early to make a decision about how I feel about the president's proposed intervention, but I'm interested in learning more. I'm heading back to D.C. to get a classified briefing. I'm hoping that'll give me an opportunity to ask some of the tough questions I have for our administration about what they see as a victory. What does an outcome look like? But I will tell you this, Joe, I'm very concerned about the prospect of committing United States service members to another war. Having just come from Afghanistan, I can tell you, these men and women have been serving for many years, and it's time to bring them home.
Well, and any last words for our viewers right here in South Texas that support Congressman Vela, and I'm sure that are on the same page with you on many of your initiatives?
Well, first, I just want to say the folks in South Texas are very lucky to have a representative like Filemon Vela. He is one of my closest friends in Congress, and I think it's because we think a lot the same way. He's smart, he's even-tempered, he works across the aisle, and most of all, he's focused on solutions. And the people of South Texas are very lucky to have him.
And we're very lucky to have you, and I know you work in bipartisan on a lot of things. So Congressman Sinema is going to go ahead and catch a plane, but thank you again, Congresswoman, for being here.
Thanks so much. It's my pleasure.
Have you or a loved one suffered a stroke, heart attack, unexplained low blood pressure, or death during dialysis? The FDA has issued warnings and recalled the product Granuflo and Naturalite used in dialysis. At least one national company failed to warn the public that over 900 people had suffered cardiac arrest or death. A condition called metabolic alkalosis developed, which may have caused the harm. Call the law offices of Joe Flores today. With a combined 25 years of experience in the medical field and as a trial lawyer, Joe Flores can help. Call now. Have you or a loved one suffered a stroke, heart attack, unexplained low blood pressure, or death during dialysis? The FDA has issued warnings and recalled the product Granuflo and Naturalite used in dialysis. At least one national company failed to warn the public that over 900 people had suffered cardiac arrest or death. A condition called metabolic alkalosis developed, which may have caused the harm. Call the law offices of Joe Flores today. With a combined 25 years of experience in the medical field and as a trial lawyer, Joe Flores can help. Call now.